You know, way up high in the Himalayas, there are these incredible spots where history, geography, and faith just collide. And today, we're heading to one of the most sacred of them all, Kedarnath. All right, let's get right into it and explore this amazing sanctuary in the sky.
So, you gotta understand, Kedarnath isn't just a temple. It's really this symbol of endurance for an entire civilization, perched way up in the stunning Garhwal Himalayas. I mean, for thousands of years, it's just been sitting there, this silent witness to incredible devotion, raw geological power, and, of course, the human spirit.
And that really brings us to the big question for this whole explainer, right? When you look at where it is, what it's been through, you just have to ask, how on earth did it survive? How can a simple stone temple last for so long in one of the planet's absolute harshest environments? Okay, to really get a sense of the challenge, let's start with this number, 11,755 feet. That's how high up the temple sits. We're talking about an altitude where the air is super thin, the weather can turn on you in a second, and you are truly isolated. Just getting there is a massive achievement.
And you know what? That challenge, that's a huge part of the whole experience. So before we even get to the temple itself, we've got to talk about the journey to get there, a pilgrimage that's going to test you physically and spiritually. All right, so the journey today usually kicks off from a town called Garikund. And from there, you're looking at a seriously tough 16-kilometer trek, and it's all uphill. You have to be really careful and let your body get used to the altitude, because altitude sickness is no joke. Only after all that do you finally arrive in the sacred valley. Now sure, you could take a pony or even a helicopter these days, but the real, traditional path of devotion, that's the trek on foot.
Okay, what's so fascinating here is how this table shows that nature is completely in charge. I mean, it dictates everything. The window of time you can actually go is super narrow. The absolute best time, September to October. You get those crystal clear skies. You can also go in May and June, but it's going to be cold, though it is accessible. But avoid July and August. That's monsoon season, and the risk of landslides is just way too high. And from November to April, the whole area is just buried under snow. The temple's completely closed.
So, after that incredible journey, let's say we've finally made it, we've arrived. And now we get to look at the temple itself. This absolute marvel of architecture that has faced down nature's fury for, well, centuries. And its biggest test in recent memory, that came in 2013. It was this catastrophic flood. A massive torrent of water, rock and ice from a melting glacier just came thundering down the river, basically wiping out everything in its path.
The entire valley was just gone, devastated. And yet somehow the ancient temple was still standing. So how is that possible? Well, a single gigantic boulder came crashing down with the flood and lodged itself perfectly behind the temple. It acted like a shield, splitting that deadly current of water and debris right down the middle, forcing it to go around the temple walls.
And that boulder, today, people call it the Bhim Shila, which means the divine rock. And for so many devotees, the way it just appeared, in the exact right spot, at the exact right time, well, that was nothing short of a miracle. A modern-day act of divine intervention that just adds to the temple's legend.
But it's not just miracles. This place is an engineering genius. It was built in what's called the Nagara style, using these huge stone slabs that are interlocked. Get this, with no mortar at all. This ancient building technique actually allows the whole structure to flex just a tiny bit, which gives it the strength to handle earthquakes and the harsh environment up there. Inside, there's this unique conical stone, which is a Shiva lingam. That's an abstract representation of the deity, and it symbolizes the hump of a bull from a really famous story. And the whole building is precisely oriented to face east, so it catches the very first rays of the morning sun.
But you see, the temple's strength isn't just about its stones, it's about its stories. To really get why Kedarnath has lasted so long, we need to dig into the deep mythological and historical roots that have anchored it in the heart of this civilization.
So, when it comes to its origin, there are really two big stories, and they're both super important. First, there's the mythological one. This story says the temple was built by the Pandava brothers from the epic Mahabharata. They were looking for forgiveness from Lord Shiva, who had disguised himself as a bull. And right here at Kedarnath is where his hump appeared. Then you have the historical record, which points to the great philosopher Adi Shankaracharya in the 8th century. He's credited with building the temple we see today as part of his huge effort to revive pilgrimage sites all across India.
And this timeline just shows you the sheer scale of its history. It's incredible. I mean, it's mentioned in ancient texts, it gets a massive reboot in the 8th century, it's supported by local kings through the medieval era, and then, boom, it has this miraculous survival in 2013. It's this unbroken thread of faith and endurance that just keeps going.
So, when you put it all together, the geography, the history, the incredible engineering, the deep faith, it creates this absolutely unshakable legacy. Which brings us right back to our big question. Why does this place mean so much to so many people?
Okay, spiritually speaking, Kedarnath is an absolute powerhouse. For starters, it's one of the 12 Jyotirlingas, which are considered the most sacred shrines to Lord Shiva. It's also a key stop on the famous Char Dham Yatra, a pilgrimage circuit to 4 holy sites. For millions of people, making a journey here is a crucial step in seeking moksha, or liberation from the cycle of life and death. And this is really important. The place represents tapasya, or austerity. That means the harsh environment, the cold, the difficult journey, that's not just something to get through. It's actually part of the spiritual practice itself.
You know, in the end, there's this really deep feeling that almost everyone who goes there talks about. It's a sense of transformation that's kind of hard to explain. I think this quote from our source material really says it best. Kedarnath meets you where you are and quietly changes you. And that just leaves us with one final thought to ponder. So whether you come at this as a historian, a geographer, a tourist, or a devotee, you have to ask yourself, what would you find at Kedarnath?